Hello, my name is Sharon Tomback. I'm here representing the Friends of Miller House Washington's Headquarters, Inc., and the Elijah Miller House Committee to bring you some serious concerns we have as a group regarding Miller House. The slides are displayed here on the screen. You probably won't be able to read them, so bear with me. I will read some of the information for you. The Elijah Miller House, Washington's headquarters on Virginia Road in North White Plains, is a national historic treasure. However, it's being allowed to crumble into ruin. The owner, Westchester County, allowed moss and plants to grow from the roof of the building, and then the owner covered it with a series of tarpaulins. The current one is now ripped, and the National Historic Treasure continues to crumble into ruin. The Elijah Miller House, Washington's headquarters, has been owned by Westchester County since 1917, and it's currently abandoned. The picture on the left is a sign from the Parks Department for the county advertising Washington's headquarters. The photograph on the right is a picture showing Washington's headquarters from the county, Westchester County Archives, before it was abandoned and when it was staffed and operational by the Parks Department. The White Plains Chapter DAR, Daughters of American Revolution, provided unstinting service to the Elijah Miller House from 1917 through 1993. There's a plaque. You see the plaque on the right, and it reads, "In tribute to the White Plains Chapter DAR in recognition of unstinting service to Washington's headquarters museum spanning the years 1917 through 1993. 1994, a contractual agreement between the White Plains Chapter DAR, the New York State Attorney General, and Westchester County was signed to underscore the county's ownership and responsibility for the building and its contents. The agreement is titled Assurance of Discontinuance pursuant to Executive Law 6315, signed November 2, 1994. The Attorney General for the State of New York retained the right to compel compliance with the agreement, and I quote from paragraph 12, "Evidence of a violation of this agreement shall constitute prima facie proof of violation of the applicable law in any civil action or proceeding thereafter commenced by the Attorney General." The Elijah Miller House has been recognized and authenticated by many, many, many sources dating from the time of the American Revolution, 1776. Its authenticity has been accepted by the national, the state, the county, and local levels. It's on the National Register, the New York State Register, the Westchester County Inventory Historic Places, and the town designated a landmark August 25, 1977. The Elijah Miller House, Washington's headquarters, has been recognized by sources such as on March 25, 2005, then county legislator, now county executive Robert P. Astorino, wrote the following to Commissioner Joseph Stout, Westchester County Department, Parks, Recreation, Conservation. Quote, "As you know, this precious facility has fallen into disrepair and is in need of attention. The residents of the town of North Castle want assurance from the county that this National Historic Landmark will be protected and preserved." Note, March 25, 2005. So what's happened? March 29, 2007, Land Air was hired to do a study, presented the proposal to John Baker, Director of Program Development, Westchester County Department of Parks Conservation. October 10, 2008, then County Legislator John Nona wrote the following to fellow legislator Jose Alvarado and then Chairman of the Board legislators Ken Jenkins. Attached is a copy of report from Land Air regarding Miller House. The Miller House and property is owned by the county. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, New York Register of Historic Places. It was used as one of George Washington's headquarters during the Battle of White Plains. The property is in a deteriorated condition and needs immediate repair. So 2005, 2008. On January 21st, 2010, County Board of Legislators met to consider an amended bond act totaling $1.3 million, which included $100,000 in previously authorized bond funds. The board received, filed, and approved the Land Air Report, adopted the Bond Act by a vote of 14 ayes, 1 nay, 1 absent. July 1, 2010, County Executive Robert P. Astorino vetoed the act. 11 days later, July 12, 2010, county legislators voted to override Mr. Astorino's veto, 14 ayes, 2 nays. August 8, 2011, Board of Legislators voted again. August 22, 2011, County Board of Legislators overrode Executive Astorino's veto. Here's a picture from October 2012, and it was in the LOHUD Journal newspaper, article by Elizabeth Ganga, Historic Miller House Decays as Westchester Lawmakers Seek Renovations Since 2008. I might amend that previous to 2005, when then legislator Astorino wrote his letter. These are two pictures showing you the interior of Miller House before neglect, before decay, before ruin. The Elijah Miller House was occupied by the family for more than 100 years. The house is reported to date back to 1738. The west end is believed to have been added about 1770. And Ann Miller, the widow of Elijah was killed in the Revolutionary War, lived in the house until 1819. One of her daughters, Sarah Miller Cornell, lived in the house until she died in 1838. The Elijah Miller House has served the Patriot cause during the American Revolution, 1776, 1778, 1781. Widow Ann Miller opened her home as lodging quarters for General Charles Lee, who was second in command of the Patriot forces, Colonel Alexander McDougall, General Horatio Gates, and General George Washington. She opened her property as a campground for Patriot forces, opened her home and property as a hospital for the forces, founded the First Methodist Church in White Plains in her home, and sacrificed her Patriot husband and 2 Patriot sons. All died in 1776. These are the tombstones of the 3 men, her husband and her 2 sons. Elijah, the husband, died at 48 years of age. The 2 sons, 20 and 16, and they were killed 3 days before Christmas in 1776. And all 3 lie buried in the Presbyterian churchyard in White Plains. One of the daughters of Elijah and Ann Miller, Zephora, stated in an interview, General Lee's headquarters were at my mother's a day or 2 before the Battle of White Plains, and that morning or the day before, the general advised us to move back, and we were stopped not long after we left home on a high hill where we saw the fight for Chatterton Hill. She also testified that their house served as quarters for Washington's officers, including Major General Charles Lee, Colonel Alexander McDougall, and General Horatio Gates. She recalled that one night her mother resigned her own bed to General Washington. Another reference, little companies of Christians met at the house of Mrs. Ann Miller in North Castle, quote, Washington's headquarters. When the New Rochelle Circuit was organized in 1787, Mrs. Miller's house was one of the regular appointments. There is also a register dating back to 1845 in the possession of Westchester County Historical Society, recording visitors from beginning in 1845. Obviously, visitors were there before those years, but this is a surviving register. Another documentation for Miller House in Washington's headquarters. October 18th, 1848. This day I made a drawing of the house and of the chair in which I am sitting. This was a drawing by Benson Losing, and he later published it in his Field Book of the American Revolution. This is a picture drawn by Abram Husser and etched by H.B. Hall, showing the house in 1881. And we should not forget that the property behind Miller House is a park, county park, Miller Hill Park, and it is the only Revolutionary War battle site in the county of Westchester remaining in its natural state. So I ask you, how will you help save the Miller House and safeguard Miller Hill Park? In addition, during the previous board's administration, there were negotiations. Supervisor Arden, Councilman Cronin, and unknown parties at Westchester County concerning Miller House, possibility of moving it to different places, one of which was Fountain Park. That is not something our committees are in favor of. We would prefer the house to remain on the site it has sat since 1738. April 23, 2013, the North Castle Landmarks Preservation Committee filed an order to the owner to repair, restore, and preserve the exterior architectural features. The letter reads, the Elijah Miller House has been designed as a state and designated as a state national landmark. It's also been designated a landmark pursuant to North Castle Landmarks Preservation Ordinance. Under Section 12624 of the Landmarks Preservation Ordinance of the Town of North Castle, quote, no owner with an interest in real property designated as a landmark shall permit the property to fall into a serious state of disrepair so as to result in the deterioration of any exterior architectural feature which would, in the judgment of the LPC, produce a detrimental effect upon the character of the property itself. The Elijah Miller House is owned by the County of Westchester. Landmarks Preservation Committee finds the owner has permitted the property to fall into a serious state of disrepair so as to result in the deterioration of its exterior architectural features, producing a detrimental effect upon the character of the property. Pursuant to Section 12625 of the Code of the Town of North Castle, the Landmarks Preservation Committee, Town of North Castle, hereby orders the owner of the Elijah Miller House, the County of Westchester, immediately to repair the property so as to restore and preserve exterior architectural features. Signed, Susan R. Scheimer, Chair, Landmarks Preservation Committee, April 23, 2013. Previous to that, February 12, 2013, Friends of Miller House, Washington's headquarters, had sent a 17-page rebuttal letter to the county's Historic Preservation Advisory Committee and included copies of all source materials amounting to probably an inch of paper bound into a book, and that was to rebut claims made by HPAC that were misleading and erroneous. Bound copies were provided to 15 recipients, including County Executive Robert P. Astorino, Deputy County Executive Kevin Plunkett, Westchester County Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Commissioner Kathleen O'Connor, Westchester County Historian, Westchester County Historical Society Director Katie Height. No response. This is a drawing that I told you about earlier. This shows you the 1840s drawing by Benson Losing, published in his book, The Pictorial Field Book of the Revolution. I think it's important for you to know also that the role of the Elijah Miller House in the Battle of White Plains and the serious consequences that would have resulted had the battle gone a different way. In 1776, during the latter part of October and early days of November, a significant series of battles were fought in White Plains area between the Patriot and Loyalist forces. One of those battles was fought by Patriot forces atop Miller Hill. Miller Hill, as I told you before, is atop and behind Miller House. Artillery shots fired from Miller Hill were the last action in the battles for White Plains, which had begun on October 28, 1776, with a fight for possession of Chatterton's Hill. Some historians disagree whether these shots were fired November 1 or November 4, 1776, but most historians agree that the Battle of White Plains stopped the British advance northward from New York City. And again, Miller Hill Park is the only American Revolutionary War battle site in Westchester County, still in its natural setting. The value of the Elijah Miller House, Washington's headquarters museum, is something that cannot be measured in dollars, any more than our nation's freedoms can be measured in dollars. It is unacceptable to allow any property owned by the citizens of Westchester County to disintegrate. The upkeep of the Elijah Miller House Museum should be an integral part of the county's budget. How will you help save the Elijah Miller House, Washington's headquarters? Thank you.